The call came in the middle of my workday, not at the beginning of anything dramatic, not at the end of a long build-up. Just a Tuesday afternoon in Denver, spreadsheets open, risk models half-run, coffee cooling beside my keyboard. I'm Claire Mitchell. I was 30 years old at the time, a fintech risk analyst whose entire job was predicting worst-case scenarios before they happened. I built contingency trees for a living. I stress-tested futures. I warned executives about what could go wrong years in advance. And yet nothing in my job ever prepared me for what waited in my voicemail inbox at 2:14 p.m. I didn't listen to it right away. I finished adjusting a volatility assumption because that's who I was. Professional to the bone, trained to separate noise from signal. The irony still stings. I could forecast market collapses down to decimal points, but I never modeled the possibility that my own family would erase me without warning. It was only when my phone buzzed again, the same notification, that I tapped play and my mother's voice filled my ear, flat and businesslike, stripped of the warmth she used on neighbors and church friends. There was no preamble, no sigh, no hesitation. Just a verdict delivered like a line item. You're out. Don't come back. We're moving on without you. No explanation followed. No anger. No tears. 10 seconds, maybe less. Enough time to dismantle a life. When the recording ended, the silence roared. My heartbeat thudded so loud I could hear it in my ears, a rushing sound like blood underwater. My hands went cold. Then, almost instantly, the other part of my brain woke up, the one trained to respond, not react. The analyst. The woman who knew that when something fails suddenly, you don't panic. You assess exposure. I didn't call her back. That was the first move. Instead, I typed a single word. Okay. No punctuation. No questions. Then I opened my laptop wider and logged into the Family LLC dashboard, the one I had built from scratch because, you're good with numbers, Claire. I revoked permissions methodically, user by user, locking access to the rental properties I managed, the cash flow reports I maintained, the triplex deal that was supposed to close in 3 weeks. I flagged the pending transaction and withdrew my signature authority. Next, I pulled out of the house deal they were counting on, the down payment structured around my credit and liquidity. After that, I froze the retirement account architecture I'd designed years earlier, the tax-efficient structure that saved them more money than they ever acknowledged. Each step felt surreal, like watching myself from above, but it also felt clean, logical, necessary. I kept working while I did it. Sipped my coffee as it went lukewarm. Answered a Slack message about risk thresholds. By the time my coffee was finished, so was every easy road they had planned to take. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I simply removed myself from the system they'd been using without ever seeing me. By the next morning, my phone showed 46 missed calls. My mother, my father, an aunt I hadn't spoken to in years. Then a voicemail from a number I recognized immediately. Their lawyer. His tone was tight, rehearsed calm, cracking at the edges. Claire, we have a serious problem, he said. I listened to it twice. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the truth finally clicked into place. The problem wasn't me being gone. It was what I took with me when I left. And if you stay with me until the end, you'll see exactly how that realization changed everything. The night felt heavier than it should have. My phone vibrated against the edge of the nightstand, the screen lighting up with a string of notifications that made my chest tighten. 46 missed calls stared back at me, a digital cacophony of panic and expectation. I picked it up slowly, letting the quiet seep in before I acted. First, I made coffee, the ritual grounding me, keeping the chaos at bay while I dealt with the aftermath. Steam curled around my fingers as I listened to the first voicemail, from Evan Coleman, my parents' lawyer. His voice was tight, carefully measured, betraying the tension in a way my parents never could. Claire, he said, we have a serious problem. He didn't elaborate, but the subtext was clear. They had underestimated what they'd set in motion. Almost immediately, texts began flooding in. Mom trying to rewrite reality. Just a misunderstanding. Dad desperate and casual at once. Kiddo, whatever happened, we can fix this. Mom again, a third attempt. We didn't mean it like that. I sipped my coffee, my professional instincts kicking in. Yesterday had no misunderstanding. Yesterday had a verdict, clear, sharp, and unambiguous. The noise they were creating now was irrelevant. Evidence mattered more than their excuses. Brooke, my sister, was notable in her absence. The one who usually spammed every family group chat with memes, commentary, and self-promotion was quiet, eerily so. For someone who thrived on attention, she was missing. My mind ticked through possibilities, each more deliberate than the last. Brooke wasn't absent by accident. She was the puppet master waiting in the wings, a silent observer orchestrating the chaos, letting the pieces fall before she intervened. That quietness, I knew, would become her power. I pulled up the building security app on my phone, curious, professional instincts refusing to let emotion cloud observation. Footage showed Dad lingering outside my apartment building the night before. He checked his phone, hesitated, and then left. No knock, no call, just retreat. I pushed the feeling down, the old muscle memory of survival kicking in. My guiding philosophy had always been clear. When people show you how easily they can cut you off, you do not rush to comfort them when they feel the knife swing back your way. The phone buzzed again as I prepared for work, the vibrations an extension of yesterday's storm. I sent 3 short, deliberate replies. To Mom, I'm safe. I need time. To Dad, I heard the voicemail. I'm not ready to talk. To the lawyer, I received your message. I will respond in writing. That was it. No further explanation, no over-apologizing. I did not owe anyone more than that. By mid-morning, Jenna, my coworker and closest confidant at the firm, noticed my stress. Her eyebrow arched as she asked if I was okay. I let out a slow breath and explained the situation. The family ultimatum delivered via voicemail, the sudden erasure from the family business. She paused, absorbing the information, then leaned back and shook her head. Do they realize you are the family business? She asked, the question sharp and unnerving. Her advice landed like a bullet. The second money is involved, everybody starts performing. If you make moves out of guilt, they will spin that into you admitting fault. And just like that, my own expertise, risk assessment, contingency planning, damage control, flipped inward. I was no longer managing spreadsheets and portfolio risk. I was managing my own survival, applying the same precision to the family chaos I had always reserved for professional challenges. I had built the perfect system to protect myself, and now it was working exactly as intended. Every detail mattered. Every pause, every absence, every message was data. I could read the patterns, predict the moves, and act before they realized what had changed. Yesterday's shock had become today's intelligence-gathering operation, and I was more than ready to turn information into advantage. The first message arrived quietly, almost innocuously, a text from a cousin I barely spoke to. The words on the screen made my stomach twist. Hey, just wanted to check in. Heard you're overwhelmed. Take care of yourself. Overwhelmed. That was not my word. Not ever. I could feel it in my bones immediately. The subtle inflection of someone trying to make me sound fragile, indecisive, like I was crumbling under pressure. And I knew exactly whose voice that mimicked. The way Brooke would blink back fake tears, the soft stammer she used when playing the innocent one. She was spreading lies, crafting a narrative that didn't exist. My chest tightened, but I forced a breath, letting my analytical mind take over. Whoever was behind this wanted everyone to see me as weak. They were wrong. The pattern became clear when I started connecting the dots. Brooke had recently lost her marketing job, and for the first time I noticed her adopting phrases she never used before. At Sunday dinners, over wine and half-hearted laughter. We should streamline the LLC. Maybe free up some equity. The words were foreign to her, awkwardly repeated, yet now everywhere she went. Never had she cared about spreadsheets or contracts or bank ledgers. Only now she was quiet, letting the words hang, her absence more powerful than her presence, like a puppeteer who had already pulled the strings and was watching the chaos unfold. A clean edge of anger cut through me, precise, cold. If Brooke was behind this, she had chosen the wrong sister to pick a financial fight with. 2 days later, I tried to step back into normalcy, to reclaim a fragment of routine. I sat at a coffee shop near my office, notebook open, coffee steaming, pretending the world was ordinary. That illusion shattered when Tom Reynolds, my dad's old buddy, approached the table. He leaned in, casual but too close, and repeated the same story I'd just started piecing together. "Overwhelmed," he said, emphasizing the word mentally, as though I were fragile, the kind of person people tiptoe around to avoid witnessing a breakdown. He referenced my mom and Brooke, the family group chat, the exact lines they were spinning. I forced a smile, nodding just enough to appear polite, but my teeth ground together behind it. I left the shop quickly, the taste of coffee bitter and metallic on my tongue. That evening, I knew I couldn't leave things to chance. I called Daniel Hayes, the original advisor for the LLC I had built, and laid out my concerns. I asked the only question that mattered. Has anyone tried to change ownership percentages without me? The answer hit like a punch. Draft documents had been circulating, naming another family member as managing member. My signature line was blank. The documents were messy, questionable, and clearly designed to move fast if I didn't notice. Daniel assured me calmly that nothing could proceed without my authorization, but the intent was unmistakable. The hierarchy I had painstakingly designed, built to protect the business and my role within it, was being targeted. Brooke was trying to backdoor her way into control, using lies, whispers, and legal loopholes as her weapons. And now, for the first time, it was clear. The narrative war had begun, and I was at the center of the battlefield. Brooke finally broke her silence with a text that landed like a jab I wasn't expecting, even though I should have seen it coming. "What do you think you're doing, Claire?" it read, followed quickly by accusations that I was freaking everyone out, and that this is a mess and you are making it worse. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, the draft ready to unleash all the frustration and fury I'd been holding in, the words sharp and biting. Then I paused, deleted it. My training, years of analyzing risk, calculating responses, and controlling escalation, kicked in. Emotional reaction would give them leverage. Documentation, formal communication, and precision would strip it away. Strategy over impulse. That became my mantra for the day. First, I drafted a formal email to the real estate agent handling the house deal they'd assumed I'd close. Every word was deliberate, professional, unemotional. I stated clearly that my withdrawal was final, and that any representation of my participation was inaccurate and unauthorized. I requested formal confirmation of cancellation and copied their lawyer on the correspondence. Nothing extra, nothing personal, nothing emotional, just facts, timestamps, and boundaries. Next, I addressed Brooke directly, treating her like any other risk in a professional escalation. The email was firm but factual. Altering ownership without consent was unauthorized and may constitute fraud. I instructed her in clear terms. Do not sign my name. Do not imply my approval. Consequences were spelled out calmly. No yelling. No name-calling. Just facts, procedures, and accountability. It was the blueprint of authority, the same way I would escalate any compliance risk in my professional life. Then came the construction of what I call the family risk file. I created a secure folder, methodically filling it with screenshots of texts, the lawyer's voicemail, Daniel Hayes' notes, and all emails sent and received. Every move, every lie, every attempt to paint me as unstable was documented. Each timestamp became a building block in a counter-narrative, one that could withstand scrutiny, one that would make anyone who tried to misrepresent the truth hesitate. My philosophy was clear. If Brooke was building a story where I was the problem, I would construct a better story, one backed by evidence, precision, and timing. Late afternoon, a new call came in. Jason Liu, my parents' new financial advisor. He had been reviewing the discrepancies in LLC documents and the draft forms showing Brooke suddenly listed as co-trustee. Claire's name appeared, but unsigned, a placeholder with no authority. He mentioned that the family seemed to believe I had stepped away, and unsurprisingly, the word overwhelmed came up again. I listened carefully, asked detailed questions, and gave strict instructions. Every request from the family, every draft, every signature change was unauthorized unless it bore my live signature. Nothing moved without me. No exceptions. By the end of the day, the power shift was already visible. People began asking questions. Advisors who hadn't seen the full picture started noticing irregularities. The lies Brooke had tried to weave were unraveling, and for the first time, it felt like the narrative was tilting in my favor. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was in control. Every text, every call, every document now existed as both shield and sword. The battlefield had expanded beyond voices and accusations. It was now fully documented, formalized, and impossible to misrepresent. My strategy was working, and Brooke's overreach was becoming increasingly apparent. The story finally was mine to tell. The first text came mid-morning. Just 5 minutes, no arguing. Please. It was Mom, cautiously extending an olive branch. I read it once, let it sit. Then I called. The conference call was tense but telling. Both parents on the line, voices careful, hesitant. Mom admitted first. We messed up. That was extreme. I let her words hang. The revelation followed quickly. Brooke had told them I was planning to cut them out of the LLC, remove them from retirement accounts, and seize full control. The story, she claimed, had been concocted after dinner in the car. I paused, letting the absurdity settle. Did you hear those words from me directly? Yes. There was a silence that spoke louder than words. Mom admitted. Well, no. I added the proof. I had taken my own car that night, left alone, no one else present. Dad's reaction was immediate and sharp. Why would she make that up? The question hung in the air, a spark waiting for the right fuel. I set the meeting. All 4 family members in the same room. No speakerphone, no vague posts, no passing messages. I told them I would bring every document, every screenshot, every receipt, every timestamp. You bring everything Brooke told you, I said. Tomorrow 6 p.m. at the house. If Brooke won't come, that's an answer too. The parameters were clear. The battlefield was defined. When I walked into the living room the next evening, the air was different, though the beige couch and school photos remained. Brooke arrived late, tissue in hand like a prop, eyes flicking nervously around the room but never meeting mine. I brought a thick folder, the weight of evidence comforting in my hands. I stated up front, nothing about this is off the record. No theatrics, no intimidation, just documents. Document by document, I dismantled her story. First, timestamps. Brooke's rideshare receipt to my parents' house. 10:15 p.m. My gas station charge across town. 10:13 p.m. Different cars. Different routes. There was no car conversation. Brooke's only defense. Maybe it was another night. I pointed out the only other dinner in the last 3 months. She had left early to meet friends. No private ride then either. Next, the real estate email. My withdrawal sent before Brooke's mental health narrative even reached Mom and Dad. Susan's reply ignored Brooke entirely. Jason's notes about draft LLC documents confirmed my instructions had blocked any unauthorized changes. Screenshots of Brooke's posts, Megan's messages about gossip, and a chain of texts completed the narrative. Each timestamp, each record, each digital breadcrumb told the same story. Brooke's account was false. My evidence wasn't just a counterargument. It was incontrovertible proof. The room shifted as my parents absorbed it all. Mom turned to Brooke. You told us you saw emails. Brooke attempted deflection. She's always liked control. Dad's voice cut through sharply. The truth doesn't fall apart when you hold it next to a receipt. Yours did. Mom's insight came last, but with finality. We always thought you could handle more. We protected her and pushed responsibility onto you. The only person who has lied to us is the one we told not to come back. He paused, her gaze firm. Not this time. Brooke slumped, defeated in the quiet aftermath. The evidence laid bare. The showdown wasn't just about proof. It was about authority reclaimed, the narrative corrected, and the silent power shift made visible. For the first time in years, the family room wasn't a place of manipulation. It was the scene of accountability, with every lie unraveled and every truth documented. The ledger of deception balanced at last, and I stood at the center, unshaken, factual, and finally, fully in control. The fallout from the living room showdown didn't fade with time. It materialized immediately, in structure as much as in emotion. Brooke, ever the instigator, tried the familiar guilt tactic first. "Are you happy you made Mom cry?" she asked, her voice sharp, poised to elicit regret. I met her calmly. "This isn't about making anyone cry. It's about consequences," I said, letting the words land. "Dad," ever the mediator, asked softly, "what do you think should happen?" And I laid out my terms clearly. I would step back as the default safety net, but Brooke would get zero access to anything I had built. No permissions, no influence, no speaking on behalf of our parents to any advisors, lawyers, or financial managers. Boundaries weren't negotiable. They were structural. Mom, finally blunt, nodded in agreement. "All it has done is make her think she is entitled to money that isn't there until Claire builds it," she said, a rare moment of clarity breaking through the years of favoritism and assumptions. We turned then to the practical. I would rewrite all LLC documents and account structures based on what actually made sense for the family and the business. Mom admitted, almost grudgingly, "You know more than we do." For the first time, expertise replaced expectation, and logic replaced entitlement. Brooke's reaction was instantaneous. A harsh laugh, the kind that tried to mask panic. "You're handing her everything," she spat. Dad, calm but pointed, countered. "The truth would have held up against a gas receipt. Yours didn't." Brooke switched tactics, offering sympathy, pleading for reasonableness, even suggesting she could manage social media for me. I didn't flinch. "If you want to prove you can build something, you don't do it by wiring yourself into what someone else has already built," I told her. Her final threat, delivered through clenched teeth. "You're going to regret this." I smiled softly, unwavering. "I think I can protect what I have earned." Legal restructuring followed swiftly. Jason Liu sent revised drafts, carefully written, leaving only Claire and Dad as managing members. Evan scheduled a formal signing meeting. The LLC operating agreement was updated, now requiring unanimous written consent for any new members. There wasn't a line where Brooke's name could even be penciled in later. This wasn't revenge as drama. It was revenge as structure. No theatrics. Just rules, boundaries, and enforceable consequences. The architecture of authority had shifted permanently. Brooke's last attempt came 1 week later. She showed up at my office unannounced, binder in hand, pages filled with event schedules, brand partnerships, influencer collaborations. Her blueprint for a business built on borrowed access. She asked for investment, framing it as a chance to prove everyone wrong. I didn't take the binder. "Start it without me," I said firmly. Her face was a storm, anger and panic battling for space, but I didn't flinch. "I'm done helping people set themselves on fire with my gasoline," I told her and walked away, leaving her and the binder behind. A month later, the new normal had settled in, not as a return to the old life but as a life rebuilt. The pale brick triplex stood quiet and orderly. The bottom unit remained my parents', protected for life in writing. The second floor was mine. The third unit rented. Mitchell Holdings LLC was leaner, cleaner, with only Dad and me as managing members, Mom as a beneficiary, and more safeguards than any family drama could shake loose. Weekend dinners resumed, but now I walked my parents through real finances, showing them transparency and structure. Mom learned, for the first time, to say no to Brooke's requests without guilt. Boundaries were no longer lines in sand. They were walls that I built, fortified with experience, evidence, and unshakable control. The emotional battles, the text messages, the lies. All of it had led to a single truth. I could protect what I had earned, and in doing so, I had rewritten the rules of our family. Brooke's games, manipulations, and threats were now irrelevant. The house, the LLC, the finances, even the relationships were realigned around accountability, competence, and clear authority. I had not just survived the war. They had learned, painfully, that the era of quiet manipulation was over. The balance was restored, and for the first time, the Mitchell family operated not on favoritism, fear, or guilt, but on fact, proof, and enforceable boundaries.